Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of House Calls, Real Docs, Real Talk. I'm Chelsea Helms, and I'm your new show host today. I'm taking over the reins for Ms. Carrie Pena, who, of course, as you know, did an amazing job. As we have so many of you watching from across the nation, I'm so excited to be here with all of you. A little bit about me. I grew up in upstate New York. I worked for several years in Colorado in broadcast news, and now I live here as the main evening anchor for KNWA in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I'm very excited to join all of you this morning for such really an important discussion. As you know, House Calls provides an opportunity to come together, ask health questions of the experts, and walk away with timely answers to ease your mind in what really are just such strange, unprecedented times. If you have a question that you'd like us to address today, or maybe on a future show, we encourage you to visit us at heart.org/housecalls and submit your question, or you can drop it below in the comments throughout the show. A big part of this show is the involvement from all of you who are watching at home. And so today we have two things that we want to ask you that you help us with. First and foremost, throughout the show, we're going to break for a few questions, and we ask that you do respond using our easy text to answer feature. All you have to do is text AHA live to 22333. We're not going to ask you for any of your information or your name. It's really just a fun way for you to participate and join in and give these answers. You can, of course, see those instructions there for you on your screen. Next, we want you to hit that share button, or maybe even start a watch party, whatever's easiest for you, so you can share this stream with your friends and family. All right, everyone, let's get started. With me this morning is Dr. Catherine Sanchez, Associate Professor of Social Work at the University of Texas, Arlington. Dr. Sanchez, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are excited to have you. Before we kick off our discussion, let's try our first viewer response question, which will also introduce you to our topic of the day, that being alcohol consumption. So get your phones ready. The question is, do you find yourself drinking more than you did prior to the pandemic? Yes or no? You can see the options there for you on your screen. And what's really exciting is this is live, so we're going to be able to see if people are really engaging with us right away. So please, I encourage you to do so. Let us know. go, A, B, or C. A being yes, B, no, or C, maybe I just don't drink. Already a lot of you saying that you are starting to drink quite a bit more during this pandemic. Dr. Sanchez, do you feel like you're noticing that from any of your patients?
Yeah, I think that's consistent with what we've been hearing, at least anecdotally from people. There seems to be a lot more free time on our hands. So yeah, generally people seem to be consuming more alcohol.
Yeah, no surprise there. We appreciate all of you who took the time to answer that. With that being said, let's get started with our first segment, Health in the Headlines. As you know, each week we select one headline grabbing the nation's attention and ours. This headline is one of our very own. It is from heart.org and it reads, COVID-19 pandemic brings new concerns about excessive drinking. So I know, Dr. Sanchez, we just talked about this a bit, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so interestingly, when COVID-19 hit, people found themselves being at home. And when essential services were determined at the state level, one of the things that was determined is that liquor stores are essential services. So if you're driving in your neighborhood, you might see that even in spite of the fact that restaurants are closed and everything is closed, liquor stores have remained open. Not only that, some of the restaurants, in response to being shut down and their loss of business, they have been allowed, certainly at the local level, for example, in Dallas, restaurants were allowed to sell off their wine stock, and people were getting huge benefits, huge sales on alcohol, even from their local restaurants. So yeah, no surprise that alcohol consumption has gone up.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that across the country. Now, we want to keep hearing from Dr. Sanchez, so it's only right that we move on to You Ask, We Answer. Each week, we ask you to submit your questions and we answer them right here live. I've been really impressed with so many of the thoughtful questions we've already received and are continuing to receive from all of you. Now, you might remember in last week's episode, we talked about mental health issues during a pandemic. If you missed it, I encourage you to visit the House Calls website at heart.org/housecalls, where you can find all of our previous shows. As you know, this week, our topic is alcohol consumption during quarantine, and we've had a lot of you asking us questions. So let's jump right to them. The first question comes to us from Rosie in Tiverton, Rhode Island. Rosie asks, I've heard that excessive drinking may increase my chances of getting COVID or increase the severity if I do get it. Dr. Sanchez, is that true?
So we're not sure. I mean, the evidence on the relationship between COVID and the use of alcohol is not really well established at this point. That's going to probably be one of those things that is looked at later on and figured out once we have more population level data. Certainly when people drink and drink to excess, there is a certain amount of fatigue. And with that fatigue comes a vulnerability to illness. So what we know at the individual level is, yes, it probably does worsen certainly the severity of the disease. We don't still know at the population level how it's going to be affected ultimately.
Definitely a lot more questions than answers, Dr. Sanchez, when it comes to the coronavirus right now. Now, our second question coming from Marie in Lubbock. Marie says, alcoholism runs in my family, so I am conscious of how much I drink. What is considered too much when it comes to drinking alcohol?
Yeah, the guidelines are really clear on this, and it's something that people really don't like to hear. What we know is that the maximum number of drink should be consumed by women is 1 drink per day, and 1 to 2 drinks per day for men. So there might be some benefit from the Heart Association and from a health standpoint, but last year a big study was released that basically indicated by the Lancet, which is one of the top journals in the country, science journals, that said really no amount of drinking is safe. So, but the guidelines are clear. 1 drink for women, 2 drinks for men, and this term alcoholism is a little bit tricky, and I might get into that in a minute.
Okay, yeah, I think that this next question kind of touches upon that. This one comes from Bill in Montgomery. He asks, a glass of my favorite alcoholic beverage that helps me get to sleep at night. Is this the best sleep aid? Anything I need to worry about?
Yeah, definitely not the best sleep aid, and I would suspect that as we drink more, we realize the problematic effects of alcohol. So one of the side effects of alcohol use is that while it may get you to sleep, it doesn't keep you asleep. So alcohol is associated with insomnia, night sweats, fitful sleep. So while we might perceive that it helps us get to sleep, it definitely doesn't help us stay asleep. So again, sticking to the guidelines, knowing when too much is too much, and being honest with yourself about how much you're drinking, because that's one of the things we think of alcohol use as a behavioral issue. So it's really something that only you can track and know, just like eating sweets or eating things that you shouldn't or should eat in less amounts. Alcohol really goes in that category. It's really important to track and understand how much you're using and how often you're using it.
Well, and you mentioned that it might help you get to sleep, Dr. Sanchez, but you probably aren't feeling the best the next day when you wake up. So a lot of good advice there. All right. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. We'll check back in with you in just a moment. But first, let's take a break for another one of our poll questions. Everyone, get your cell phones ready and get ready to text in your answer. As a reminder, to engage with us, all you have to do is text AHA Live to 22333. Once again, AHA Live to 22333. You can see the information there on your screen. If you've already registered and maybe participated in a previous poll, you're not going to have to do it again. You just have to get ready and text your answer to 22333. All right, here goes. What are the top reasons that people drink? Let's go ahead and pull that poll up. So we see that stress and anxiety relief, that's one of them. I like the taste, social functioning, the craving. So certainly a lot of different reasons that someone might want to consume some alcohol. Dr. Sanchez, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting social functions is coming up at all because we don't really have much opportunity for social functions these days. Yeah. Although I will say, and as alcohol relates to COVID, one of the reasons that bars have been the first thing that they've shut down, and we've now shut down again in Texas, is because when we have a drink, just one drink can lower our inhibitions. And as our inhibitions are lowered, we know that people are more likely to get close, to talk loud, where they're going to be splattering, and to maybe not physically distance. So bars we've shut down, right? And then stress and anxiety. So that's, again, in the time of COVID, things are very, very difficult. We're all experiencing immense stress. There's also financial stress that's getting added to that. Caregiving stress. Many of us are taking care of small children full time and trying to educate those children. And, oh, by the way, having a full-time job in the process. So certainly the stress and the anxiety, those reasons are there. But what we encourage is, again, finding a distraction, things that we can do differently. Cravings is an interesting issue, and nobody really weighed in on cravings. Cravings is something that we really associate with, for example, the bewitching hour. So work comes to an end, it's 5 o'clock, we're ready to drink. And so sometimes just getting through those first few minutes, maybe even the first hour of not drinking or postponing that first drink, the craving can feel immense. But again, kind of like with sweets, kind of like with anything else, what we can do to manage those cravings, and again, what we can do to manage our stress and anxiety, anything that we can do to help those things along will hopefully reduce the chances that we're going to drink when we don't want to.
Definitely. And it's interesting to see now that we've left that poll up for quite a bit now that there has been someone who's weighed in on every single one of those options. So yeah, we appreciate you explaining them all to us. All right. Our next question is about podcasts. We know you've been following our Stories of the Relentless series, right? Let's see a show of hands virtually. We want you to answer yes or no. And while you do take the time to answer, I just want to take this opportunity to brag on a little bit about our most current episode featuring actor Tim Omundson from This Is Us. He himself is a stroke survivor and shares his rehabilitation story on the episode entitled Stroke Rehab During COVID-19. We're going to show you a sneak peek right here.
The day I actually had the stroke, I was in an airport trying to get back to LA. My left hand cramped up and it wouldn't move, and I was down on the ground. And I eventually had a craniectomy, so where they took off half my skull so my brain could swell.
These are the voices of the relentless.
I love to hear people using their mediums for good. So this podcast series is not one to be missed. We hope you all become regular followers. But let's now take a look at that poll we asked you right before we showed you that video about our Stories of the Relentless series. Some of you are saying, no, I have not. Well, then I encourage you, please go check it out. We are seeing some people saying they have, so we are excited too. But looks like Tim Omenson sold it for some because they said, I have not, but I will now. So that's all good news. All right, everyone, we appreciate you participating. We're so excited to have you joining us all across the country and the world for today's episode. But we need to get back to You Ask, We Answer. Margaret from San Francisco says, I feel like there are mixed messages out there about wine consumption, with some studies saying it is good for the heart. These days, a glass or two of wine helps me unwind at the end of the day. Since it is good for the heart, it's a good stress reliever, right, Dr. Sanchez? And I think we need to get back to that earlier question about how much people can drink every day.
That's correct. So the recommended guidelines for women is 1 drink a day, 1 to 2 drinks for men. The other thing we often look at is binge drinking. 4 drinks in a given day, or in one sitting, as we say, or 4 drinks in one time period, 6 drinks for men, is considered binge drinking. Binge drinking is definitely associated with a lot more health concerns, consequences related to injury, and even cancer. Once you move outside those recommended guidelines, you're really getting into a real danger zone, which is why when they did this systematic review of many studies, yes, there are some health benefits to that red wine that especially folks at Heart Association think about. But honestly, the alcohol consumption is a colossal health burden, and so just the consequences related to injuries and cancer and other health problems are so significant that honestly, from a population health standpoint, they far outweigh any benefits of alcohol use.
That is so good to know, Dr. Sanchez. Thanks for that information. John in New Jersey, he wants to know, what are some helpful approaches to reach a loved one who's maybe drinking a bit too much?
Yeah, so this is hard. It's hard. Again, anytime we're concerned about a loved one and the people in our lives, and we want to address an issue, it can be a real challenge to talk to those people. We suggest you begin from a place of caring and loving, and not judgment, and not insisting that someone change. Sometimes it's helpful to help people look at their drinking and what their patterns are, and even maybe associated with things in their life that may be going on that you might be able to help with. But I think one of the biggest things that you can do for a loved one and with a loved one is go on a journey with them towards not drinking. Do what you can to elicit a commitment. Get on a plan together to work together toward reducing alcohol consumption. Because in the end, no one needs or has to drink. It's one of those things where if we care enough about someone to be concerned about their drinking, then hopefully we care enough to get on a journey with them toward not drinking.
Yeah, support being the key word there. All right, we do have one more time for one more question. Peggy in Tacoma, she wants to know, what are some helpful approaches to reach a loved one who might be drinking too much?
That's the one you just asked me.
Oh, well, good. Well, I guess we're moving on then, Dr. Sanchez. You're right. We did talk about that.
I can keep going on.
Well, you know what? Let's break that down a little bit, because you mentioned that judgment is a huge thing. So how do you approach a loved one who maybe is feeling judged?
Yeah, we hear about dramatic things like interventions and family meetings and things that can reach people in a very dramatic way. Honestly, who needs that kind of drama in their lives? And especially right now when we're all under so much stress. So again, I think the best way, and again, depending on the level of your relationship with the person, talking to them about what your concerns may be. Sometimes when even people have to address a behavior, some lights turn on for them, which is kind of the whole thinking behind an intervention or a family intervention. But sometimes if people can get insight into how their behavior affects someone else in their life, it kind of shifts our thinking a little bit. And again, I can't say enough about going and doing something with people together. We have some very specific things that we recommend. Putting it in writing, setting goals, keeping a diary of your drinking. Don't keep alcohol in your house. choose alcohol-free days. I think a lot of us are familiar with things like Sober January or Sober July, but taking those days and trying to grow from the days that you choose to be alcohol-free, and to try to turn those habits into everyday habits and everyday behaviors. That's what we encourage.
A lot of good advice there. Thank you so much, Dr. Sanchez, for joining us today. Before we do say goodbye to you, is there anything else you'd like to add about today's topic?
No, I think that the most important thing is that every day is a new day. And really, the evidence shows that most people who drink at some point in their lives ultimately quit. And so loading things with terms like alcoholism can be very challenging for people. Just really looking at behavior and behavior change and reduction in alcohol consumption and setting goals are things that are tangible. And when we're faced with something huge and amorphous like alcoholism, it's not something any of us want to deal with. But when we talk about things in terms of habits and making new behavior goals, it somehow seems a little bit more approachable.
Absolutely. Dr. Sanchez, once again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
it's been great
you.
being here.
Well, we loved having you. We'll have to bring you back. All right, I want to give a quick shout out to some of our people who are watching us on our Facebook Live. We have, we have Dina from Richardson, Texas. I've seen some people commenting all the way from India, so we appreciate every one of you who are taking the time to spend the morning with us. Now, each week, there are always more questions we have time to get to, and then answers we can get you. So if we didn't get to your questions today, we will always work to answer as many as we can on the House Calls after show. You can look for that on Wednesday on our social channels and on the AHA's new podcast, which I'm going to tell you about in just a moment. But first, we need to get to our weekly health hack. Health Hacks is brought to you by the stories of the Relentless, the American Heart Association's podcast. We gave you a sneak peek with Tim's story a little earlier, but there's a lot more. We can ask you to go to heart.org, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play to find it. There you're going to find even more amazing stories and conversations on a variety of topics. So make sure you go check it out, subscribe, share your thoughts in the reviews, and share it with your friends and family. All right, this week's health hack coming from Steve, who has started growing vegetables in containers on his patio. His favorites are fresh tomatoes, and he suggests these two things to help them grow. First, place a coffee filter inside the pot, covering the drainage hole so only water drains out, not the soil. And next, use water left over from streaming vegetables to water potted plants for added benefits to the soil. Steve? Great tip. Thank you. I've actually been considering growing tomatoes too, so I'm going to have to put those ideas to work. Now, remember, we feature a new tip every single week. So if you do have a helpful idea, send it our way. Send it to heart.org/housecalls. And maybe next week, you're going to see your idea live right here on this show. We can all use these amazing tips for a healthier life. Now, as we do wrap up today's show, let's turn the spotlight on our loyal audience. And what would you say? If you have been with us throughout today's show, you already know what to do. Grab your phone and get ready to text your answer to 22333. In keeping with today's topic, we've got some questions regarding mental health. True or false? Alcohol can be a component of a healthy diet if consumed in moderation. Now, when we're answering these questions, let's keep in mind what Dr. Sanchez was telling us about, and maybe the limit of the amount people can drink per gender. I think that was a huge important component of a lot of what Dr. Sanchez talked about. As you can see, 100% of you so far are saying true. Alcohol can be a component of a healthy diet if consumed in moderation. We did hear from Dr. Sanchez saying, hey, maybe not a good idea to try and put us to sleep every night, but if you're a woman, it's okay to drink a glass of wine a day, or if you're a man, you can have two. So great answers. We're so excited that so many of you have joined us. You can continue to join us all throughout the week on our Facebook pages and our different social media platforms. We're just so excited that you've been with us. Just a quick shout out. We have Sandra. She's saying, this is my favorite summer drink. She's commenting advice on our Facebook page for us. Crystal King saying, great job, Dr. Sanchez. So clearly a lot of what she said is really being valued among our audience. So I just want to say thank you for everyone who joined us today. This is our show. My thanks once again to Dr. Sanchez for her insights on how alcohol can affect us during these lonely times. Please, I encourage you, take care of yourselves. And remember that the American Heart Association is always a great resource for you. All you have to do is visit heart.org/bewell to find ideas to guide your overall health, both physical and mental. Also, don't forget you can find previous shows of ours at heart.org/housecalls. And for any of those questions that you asked that maybe we didn't get to today, the House Calls After Show will be online for viewing on Wednesday. Thank you so much again, everyone, for your time. I'm Chelsea Helms. I hope you have a wonderful week.
Learn more about House Calls, Real Docs, Real Talk, and submit your questions at Heart